Okay, we have points for the Space Marines of the Deathwatch. Deathwatch Space Marines. And I'm Christian von Carmian, Deathwatch player, who has done pretty well with the Deathwatch. Black Spear Task Force works. I've been experimenting with the many other Space Marine detachments, and I can get them to work rather well. I'm glad we're still Space Marines in some way. But this is about the points. The points are inconsistent. Hey, what is more powerful? The best of the Tau, Commander Farsight himself, or having a second Hospitaller? 80 points for Farsight, 85 points for a Hospitaller. Let's see how the Deathwatch have been treated. This is about the Adeptus Astartes Deathwatch, not the Imperial Agents Deathwatch. That is a whole different story for another video. So we have many detachments and a massive amount of combos. It's like 130 different combinations, potentially. I'm glad that Games Workshop is showing off all of the detachments that are available to the Deathwatch, as some Deathwatch players in 10th edition were not aware that you could take more than the Black Spear Task Force. If you loved a detachment from 10th edition from the Space Marine options, you can keep using it. My recommendations, from what I've got to work, are the Bastion Task Force at 1000 points, and at 2000 points, the Bastion Task Force, now with the Librarius Conclave. That, or the Black Spear Task Force. That's what I'll be focusing on for this video. It's the Deathwatch points, plus some Space Marine units that support us. If you want a full list of the points changes to all the Space Marine units, I'm sure someone who gets subtitled by YouTube's captions as War Spec Tic Tacs has you covered with a video. The dispositions available are Taken Hold for Bastion, Reconnaissance with the Librarius Conclave, and when you combine the two, you can choose either one as your disposition for the battle, or you're stuck with priority assets with the Black Spear Task Force. That is 3 detachment points. That is the only detachment you can have at 2000 points. At 1000 points, you are limited to 2 detachment points. Something, maybe a thing is coming, maybe it's only for teams. If it comes, it'll be in the next balance patch at the end of July. Then you can take any single detachment, regardless of point size. Or that may be doubles only. Or maybe Games Workshop should change all of the agents detachments to be 1 or 2 detachment points. I think Taken Hold is not too bad for Bastion Task Force. Intercessors back up and hold objectives with sticky objectives, while we're rushing in and killing enemy with lots of other infantry made up of our kill teams, made more powerful by librarians. We don't need to disruption the enemy, but killing them and stopping them from doing their thing while we can still hold some objectives, it can work. Or we have Reconnaissance, and we use our ability within the Bastion Task Force to advance and complete actions to complete the actions. The enhancement costs of the Black Spear Task Force and the Bastion Task Force are the same. No existing detachment I've seen has had any enhancements change in points, unless they were fully revamped like the Librarius Conclave. Celerity is 35 points, we don't need it as we have the Bastion Task Force with the rule that is the same thing. You could add it to a non-battle line unit in the Librarius Bastion, but there is an enhancement, the Hero of the Chapter, from the Bastion Task Force that would do the same thing, and also allow the unit to advance or fall back and perform actions. I think Prescience for 20 points is a bit too much for a reactive move. The enemy has to get within 8 inches of us, and if you did want that, we can still play the Gladius Task Force. There it appears as a stratagem. But Prescience is an option if you have the points spare. It can't go on a Terminator model, but it could go on one of our other librarians. Obfuscation is 25 points. These are all quite pricey, and it stops the enemy from firing snapshots at us, which is Overwatch, and some other things, but mainly Overwatch. Sometimes there can be very nasty enemy shooting, especially if it's coming from a vehicle. That could mess up one of our kill teams. That has use for 25 points. Temporal Corridor is the cheapest at 15 points. At the end of your opponent's fight phase, you can put this unit into strategic reserve. It doesn't say anything about not being in engagement range. You could be fighting the enemy, they've gone below half strength in your turn, they become battle shocked in their turn, the fight continues, but we don't need to be there anymore, so we can leave. And if the telekinesis discipline is active, then you have Deep Strike. And if you go first, you can change to the telekinesis discipline at the start of your turn because it's the start of the battle round. We're in the telekinesis discipline, you now have Deep Strike. Turn up just over 8 inches away from the enemy and shoot. And or charge. There's no librarian in Gravis armor, so you can't do this with an Indomitor kill team, but you can on the Veteran kill team, the Decimus kill team, the Spectres kill team, or you could put this on a Terminator librarian with Terminators, and then you don't need to worry about the Deep Strike ability, you have Deep Strike already. As the cheapest one, pretty good enhancement. Fusillade is especially good if you can put it on a librarian that is with Sternguard. We generally like Sternguard. Sternguard have devastating wounds on their guns, whether it's their combi weapons or their bolters. Add in anti-monster, anti-vehicle, anti-monster, anti-vehicle devastating wounds. Very nice, very nice. And if the Pyromancy discipline is active, also sustained hits, and if you're within 12 inches, also +1 AP. Very effective on a unit of Sternguard coming from reserves. Walk onto the table, gun the enemy. You'll definitely be within 12 inches then. So I recommend Fusillade and Temporal Corridor, and then look at 2 from the Bastion Task Force. Hero of the Chapter is a must, and Eye of the Primarch I also recommend. We'll mention that later. We now have an app to build these. We're waiting on the third-party apps to update, but Games Workshop's app has updated from 10th edition to 11th edition. Now, despite Games Workshop describing games at 1500 points as within the 1000 to 1999 band, and then going into the next bracket when you hit 2000 to switch to a new size, the app says the same as last edition. If you want 1500 points, you have to pick Strike Force, otherwise it doesn't give you enough points to make an army. People have tried to exploit the app. I thought maybe when it's saying, you can always see your opponent's rules, if you connected your army list to your opponent's army list, but you didn't own your codex so you couldn't see your list, could they see your unit abilities and army rules that you couldn't? Turns out, if you can't see your rules, they can't see your rules either. Thank you to my supporters who tried it out for me. It still has the same problems as it did in 10th edition. You have to buy each codex if you want to see the rules. Thankfully, with Deathwatch being on Index, we can see all of the Deathwatch rules, apart from Space Marine units and Space Marine detachments, except Librarius Conclave is free. Bastion Task Force was updated for free. The detachments I recommend are here, but it's the other Space Marine units, like the Sternguard, that you won't be able to see. Now, don't buy the Space Marine Codex. You would be buying the 10th edition Space Marine Codex. That will be replaced with the 11th edition Space Marine Codex around September, and if you only have the 10th edition version, you will lose access to the rules on the app until you buy the next Space Marine Codex. This is why I recommend using other apps, even though there's this, you can play each other in a battle and see victory points. You could still do that, but have your rules and unit abilities on another app, like New Recruit. So Games Workshop app is free to use, and you could use it for the tabletop battle aspect, except you can't see the army rules. You pay for them by purchasing the codex, and there's no option to buy a code only or pay once for everything for every faction, like the Warlord Games app does. One app for all of their game systems, and you can see the rules, make armies for any faction, and that's one app for all of their game systems. But Games Workshop seems to really want us to rely on this app. The app is where the other half of the core rules are. You need the app to see the rules, unless another PDF is coming. Don't hold your breath on that. The full core rules of 40k 11th edition are app only. Now, digital rules are good, free rules are standard in the industry, and Games Workshop isn't quite following that. Did you know, for example, there is a bonus part to Hidden? Super Hidden. The Gone to Ground rule. If you're hidden in terrain with a solid terrain feature between your models and the enemy that's shooting you, you get an extra 3 inches of the hidden range, so your default hidden is then 12 inches. That seems like an important rule. I hope it comes out in a PDF that everyone can see easily. The app is not easy to read all of the rules. You have to find where each rule might be. You're not turning to the next page in a book or a PDF. The app definitely has errors. Have you deleted a character when list building after attaching that character to a unit? That's a crash. I tried to export my army list. That's a crash. I had an error when I was playing a battle, hypothetically, and I tried to discard a secondary mission. I can only discard my opponent's secondary missions. Not ideal. So I think third-party apps are safe. This app is not going to eliminate the need for any of them. New Recruit will still work. And if they have Crucible characters, which at least they did in the 10th edition version, I hope they continue that into the 11th edition version. Games Workshop will not. Now let's talk about the points proper. The Deathwatch page is missing the Legends button to show more Space Marine units, which is annoying. It should be there, as we have a rule that excludes us from taking certain Legends units, which it would only do if others were still viable. They should be viable. And currently you can't see Legends units on the app. That's meant to change when we get a new codex, or when there's a Space Marine codex. In theory, then all of the Space Marine Legends units should be added to the app. If you want to see them, you have to look at the Space Marine version of the Munitorum Field Manual website page. The Legends points are not updated. It's still 120 points for Vanguard veterans without jump packs, while their jump pack variants are 100 points for 5. Doesn't seem right. But for the Deathwatch specific units, our core kill teams are the Veterans and the Decimus kill team, and sort of the Fortis kill team. The Fortis kill team is not battle line, but it's made up of pretty regular guys. The Veterans have no points changes. 100 points for 5, 190 points for 10. And there are no additional weapons costs on the Veterans. I thought we might have to buy the Heavy Thunderhammers, but they're the same as a sniper or a shotgun. None of our special weapons on any kill team costs extra points. It seems to be assumed that you tool them up to the max with the best weapons. Bolt gun and power sword enjoyers be damned. The Decimus kill team has had its points moved in line with the Deathwatch veterans. 100 points for 5, 190 points for 10. Good, good. Now in the Bastion task force, add a Librarian, you get a 4+ invulnerable save, add the Eye of the Primarch enhancement, and you get precision on all of your guns. These are very good guns. It's the Bastion task force. You can advance and shoot, and you can tear apart enemy characters. With fast rolling in 11th edition, they roll all their saves at once, and with precision, we pick the first allocation group on a character. And with the saves, the lowest saves are assigned first. With AP -2 on lots of our guns, and many enemies having a 3+ save, but with a 4+ invulnerable save on characters, the 1s and 2s and 3s go on the character first, which should be enough to kill them with our damage 2 weapons. And then the 4s will go on the bodyguard, and also start killing them too. It's the reverse of normal, where the bodyguards would take the low save rolls, and then the character would save any 4+s that were left. Nice that the Decimus kill team has gone down by 10 points. I'm glad we're not the Black Templars, whose Bastion task force is for some reason 3 detachment points. I know it's good for them, it's also really good for us though. The Fortis kill team's points are up. It's 195 points instead of the rather cheap 180, and they're 210 points for your 3rd squad. You want another unit with the Vengor launcher, it's gonna cost even more. There's a lot of additional cost if you take 3 of the same kill team, but other than the Fortis kill team, you usually don't take 3 of a kind. The Fortis kill team is a staple in the Black Spear task force. It's a very good kill team. With the points we're saving on other units, that should cover the increase to the Fortis kill team. Still keep taking them, still take 3 if you were taking 3 already and that was working for you. The Indomitor kill team is more expensive, 275 points instead of 265 points. It's only 10 more points. Taking 1 is standard in the Black Spear task force, with the captain in Gravis armor to make command points cheaper. You drop in with Hellfire shells to blow the enemy away with anti-infantry shots or anti-monster shots. Or more likely you were taking the Kraken rounds to get extra armor penetration, which will not be mitigated by the benefit of cover in this edition. Benefit of cover is -1 ballistic skill, not -1 AP. We can get another point of armor penetration. Part of the benefit of Kraken rounds was to get the increased range to get those melters into half range after arriving from reserves. That's not as necessary now that ingress is more than 8 inches away instead of more than 9 inches away when those melters are 18 inches. Half of that is 9, whereas previously we had to be more than 9. Now we can be within 9 and still eligible to ingress. The kind of ammunition you use may be a little bit different. Dragonfire rounds may get used a bit more. Advance with the Indomitor kill team, which is otherwise rather slow, and you can still shoot, and you ignore the -1 ballistic skill when shooting at enemies in cover. The Spectre's kill team is 10 points cheaper. They're a fun unit, and they should be cheaper than the others. They can't use Scout and Infiltrate combined at the start of the game, it's one or the other. You can only make a Scout move if you are deployed in your deployment zone, Otherwise, you can't scout. I know that is not what the Warhammer community article said, but Games Workshop information is heavily weighed with inaccuracies when it comes to their own rules. The people writing the rules are kept in a dungeon. The people writing the articles are only allowed to communicate with those in the dungeon once they get to the highest tower of the dungeon and then communicate in semaphore. Inaccuracies are bound to come up when that is the system. The Talon Strike is cheaper, 265 points rather than 275 points. I still think it's a little expensive, and I prefer the Indomitor Kill Team at a similar price point. For faster jump packiness, Intercessors with jump packs or Vanguard Veterans with jump packs are my go-to. Far cheaper. I know if you don't attach a character, this is a toughness 6 unit, but I think we have enough speed in the rest of the army, either with the Bastion Task Force where the kill teams are advancing and still able to shoot and charge, or in the Black Spear Task Force where we have a lot of teleporting away from the board and teleporting back on the board where we're needed. Terminators can also teleport. The only thing you need to pay for is the hammer, which is also the shield, which gives you an extra wound. We do not have to pay for Cyclone missile launchers. This is a much cheaper squad, 180 points for 5, 330 points for 10 instead of 190 points for 5 or 350 points for 10. A big squad with Power Fists and a couple of hammers and shields and Cyclone missile launchers works well in the Bastion Task Force with a character, a Librarian Terminator, who gives them sustained hits, and then the Hero of the Chapter enhancement makes them battle line. Or in the Black Spear Task Force, also have a Librarian Terminator armor, drop in with lethal hits from your detachment rule and sustained hits from the Librarian, and you got some pretty horrifying missiles and Stormbolters. It can do a lot of damage when shooting, it can do a lot of damage in combat. The Watchmaster was changed in our faction pack, so his ability has the same name as the Deathwatch Captain, as in generic Space Wing Captain. You can't use one and then the other to have two uses of one command point cheaper stratagems. So if you have a Gravis Captain, you get less use out of your Watchmaster. A regular Captain is 80 points, and so cheaper. You don't get advance and shoot and charge, but I'll be using the Bastion Task Force, so I will be advancing and shooting and charging. In the Black Spear Task Force, you may still want a Watchmaster. If you have Deathwatch Veterans in a Rhino, you move the Rhino up in the first turn. Second turn, you jump out, move, advance, shoot, charge. And if you're not using it somewhere else, there's a stratagem available for them to be one command point cheaper. Something like Armor of Contempt, or Adaptive Tactics. So regardless of what tactic you're otherwise in, this unit can have lethal hits or sustained hits, whichever one is most useful at the time. The Corvus Black Star is definitely different because it's no longer a flyer. It is now a tank with fly, a rhino with wings. It is not an aircraft. It's still 180 points, it's still quite expensive, but now it can tank shock. I mean, crushing impact. That's kind of silly. It's expensive for 180 points, but being able to fly pretty much anywhere, you just subtract 2 from your maximum movement value, so you go from movement 14 to movement 12, then drop off a unit that shoots, can't charge, but hey, we're in a place now, and we can use gun. Good for a Fortis kill team. I just wish it wasn't so expensive. Most of the time, the Deathwatch veterans will want to use a Rhino. Other Deathwatch units may want to use one of the other Space Marine transports. So now we're going to look at the Space Marine units, the general ones. I'm not doing all of the Space Marine units, just the ones that are common in Deathwatch armies. Especially considering the detachments I've talked about. Some units have different points values depending on which chapter they are with. I'm going to be taking the Deathwatch version of these points. The basic intercessors are very useful. You sit them on the home objective. Oh yes, it adds sticky, but it's also a rather cheap unit that can stay there the whole game. And if needed to shoot, they do gun rather well. A squad of 5 is the same points. A squad of 10 that's going to shoot better is down by 10 points to 150 points. That is an option for us, but the Fortis kill team is much better and not many more points. In the Bastion Task Force, the Fortis kill team is not battle line, remember? But a squad of 10 with a character comes in at about the same number of points as a Fortis kill team. So a big squad of intercessors is worth considering. We'll see how long they keep their extra number of shots as long as you're entirely firing at the same enemy. That may get changed in the Space Marine Codex, which is only a couple of months away, so do not, for any of these, rush out and buy new models. If you are desperate and you think, okay, well, I've got to buy a Decimus kill team right now, that's a staple. Oh, I want a Corvus Blackstar, links in the description. Don't go through Games Workshop. I have affiliates that will get you your models far cheaper. The Sternguard squad for a squad of 10 is 190 points instead of 200 points. Almost like it's in line with our kill teams. They're a very good choice in the Libraries Conclave with the Fusillade enhancement. I do recommend them. Now, the Vanguard veterans, which are the combat version of the Sternguard, they are not going to be updated until the Space Marine Codex. This Armageddon datasheet is not a replacement for the existing rules from the 10th edition Codex. That is just so, in theory, if you don't care about detachments and points and abilities and generally half of the rules, you could try and play 40k with just the units in the Armageddon box. You wouldn't have a battlefield, there's no terrain, there's not even any terrain areas, and the rules for playing the game are separate, like in the app. But you could, in theory, play with just the models in the box and this data card. But I'm very much expecting there will be a new kit for the Vanguard veterans coming out around the same time as the new Space Marine Codex, and then the weapons available to that new kit will be reflected in the new unit rules. This is unlike the Land Speeder, where this is the new kit, in full, no further options. Because you can swap out the Gatling cannon for a heavy flamer. That's the full extent of how you can equip the Land Speeder. Assault Marines with jump packs are a little bit cheaper. That's a good unit to drop in support with recon missions or priority asset missions. Those dispositions may require actions. Take and Hold doesn't. Ever. Apart from the 2 secondary missions that are actions. They're also a very useful unit to throw out at the enemy first if you have them in your deployment zone. And they're cheap enough that you're not committing a 250 point kill team plus character to taking out one of the small enemy units. Because we can't take scouts, how about 3 eliminators? They've gone from 85 points to 75 points. It's a cheap unit to infiltrate and complete actions, or the ability to shoot and then move is very useful with the Instigator bolt carbine gun. Start behind area terrain, move into area terrain, shoot, move behind area terrain. Then you cannot be shot unless the enemy is able to move into that area terrain to see out of it into you. A Land Raider is a very good way of transporting kill teams of any kind. It is 220 points for a basic Land Raider. Oh yeah, that's definitely worth the same as Exorcist number 2. Sure. Makes me so mad that I could point out how annoying it is. Ooh. The Land Raider Redeemer with the flame cannons is 250 points, down 20 points, which I find surprising. Only the third one costs 270 points. So if you're going for the armoured spearhead, yeah, there's your Land Raiders. We can have the Primaris bikers, but we can't have the basic bikers from Legends. We're excluded from them. And their points are also kind of confusing. 55 points for one, but the unit is 3 or 6, and then you can add an attack bike, which is 55 points. It's not very well explained. The reason we can't have this bike squad is because we had our own Deathwatch bikers, but they're an Imperial Agents Legends unit. And under our current rules, we can't take any Imperial Agent Legends units apart from Kill Team Cassius, which also excludes us from taking the Proteus Kill Team. So we'll talk about them with Imperial Agents. There's many characters that the Deathwatch like to take, and they seem to all be cheaper. A Lieutenant, down to 45 points, your unit gets lethal hits and can fall back and shoot and charge. They're very underrated as a choice in the Black Spear Task Force. Add them to Deathwatch Veterans. There's lethal hits. Now there's a new change to lethal hits for 11th edition. You can choose not to use the lethal aspect if you roll some 6s to hit. Like if your veterans with their strength 10 hammers are fighting against toughness 5 enemies with 3 wounds and a good save, Terminators. If you roll any 6s to hit on those weapons, skip the lethal part and roll to wound to see if you can get a 6 there, then it's devastating wounds. Whereas any other weapons in the unit can make use of lethal hits. Good cheap character. The Judiciar is 55 points down from 70 points. They have Fight First, which is not as good as a combat ability in this edition, but they're a good fighter, they have a good weapon, and they have free precision. That's quite useful. I think most of us, though, will add a Chaplain instead for 5 points more. The 10th edition model you were playing with completed their training and became a full chaplain. +1 to wound on the unit in combat. Much better. An apothecary is a bit of an outside choice, but it's 40 points instead of 50 points. The way it works in 11th edition, you can bring back models even if all the bodyguard are dead, but the apothecary is still alive. You haven't destroyed the unit until all of models, including the characters, are destroyed. Think of this man as a 40-point enhancement, and as support can join other leaders. If in the course of a game you return 2 Marines to the squad, that makes up for their inclusion. Especially a Decimus kill team, where you can bring back the big 3-wound Gravis Marines. Then the enemy has to punch through them again. An apothecary is also very valuable in 1000 points, where it's harder to wipe out a unit and their assigned characters in one turn. The lieutenant with combi weapon is unchanged at 85 points. Still a great character, a little bit more expensive than eliminators, but they have their own reactive move. You get to pick an objective. You get to reroll wound rolls of 1 against enemies on that objective. They're a fantastic unit to complete secondary missions. I think we'll keep including them. A basic librarian is 60 points instead of 65, so it's looking good for the Librarius Conclave. Other factions are getting punished if they take the unit that has their own dedicated detachment. Librarians not so much. Now the Phobos and the Terminator versions are unchanged. 70 points for Phobos, 75 points for the Terminator one. And in the Librarius Conclave, we could add some Inquisitors. Add any psychic character and you now have Psyker and Astartes in the same unit. But this is where the app gets weird. Inquisitors can lead heavy intercessors because they're battle line. Indomitor kill teams have a rule that says they can be led by any character that can attach to the heavy intercessors. So it makes sense that the Inquisitors could lead the Indomitor kill team. But the app doesn't let you do this. So do we rely on the app for rules? We kind of have to. It's the only place that army construction rules are right now. Because making an army and fighting a scenario are not part of the core rules of this edition. I find that disappointing when I look back on past editions' core rules. And there are loads of scenarios in the core rules, along with army construction rules, along with artwork and explanations of the different factions. That all seems to be split up into many different books and apps and PDFs in this edition, and several of those cost additional monies. Do not buy the Combat Patrol Companion. It does not teach you how to play Combat Patrol. It's a brochure of the existing Combat Patrols sold by Games Workshop. There is no reason to give them money for this. So, overall, Space Marines and Deathwatch are seeing point reductions on a lot of characters and the majority of the units that we use. The Deathwatch/Space Marines are the only faction I play to get overall points drops going from 10th edition to 11th edition, and I play a lot more factions than the ones I'm considered expert at. I've already done a video on the Sisters points and the Genestealer cult points. This was the Deathwatch, and next I'll be doing the Imperial Agents. If this video was useful to you, click that subscribe button, and have a great day of 40k.